Have you ever noticed how certain words just feel a certain way to you? Not just their definition, but an almost inherent positive or negative charge. Think about kindness. It instantly registers as good, right? And malice, it's clearly negative. It's a universal human experience. But have you ever really paused to ask why? Why do these words carry such consistent weight across different cultures, different languages? It seems almost automatic. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really intriguing new theory. It proposes something pretty radical, actually. It suggests this polarity of words, that positive or negative vibe we get, isn't just like a cultural thing. Instead, it might emerge from something much deeper, more fundamental about being human. Our source for this deep dive is a fascinating article, Odam Tili, Language as Humanity's First Religion. It's by the language researcher and the founder of this whole theory, Mamujan Kuchkarov. And the big idea here, what the Odam Tili theory suggests, is that language itself was humanity's very first religion. Just let that sink in for a second. Language as a sacred system, before theology, before myths, before rituals even. In this framework, words aren't just neutral symbols. They're seen as sacred encodings of how humans first encountered reality, morality, maybe even divinity. So our mission today is to unpack this idea. We'll explore the methodology, see how it claims to reveal this hidden universal structure in our words, how it connects them to our earliest understanding of the world, and maybe the divine too. Get ready to look at language in a completely new light.
It's true, isn't it? We all kind of know words are positive or negative, but traditional linguistics hasn't fully pinned down why. You have approaches from people like Lakoff and Johnson or Anna Wierzbicka. They talk about metaphors, semantic universals, cultural coding, all important stuff. But, like our source material points out, they often stop short. They don't always explain the root cause. Why this consistent moral weight across cultures, it feels almost built in. And that's exactly where Odam Tili theory comes in, offering a much deeper explanation. Its core idea is that language wasn't just a tool for, asking for things or describing the weather. It was humanity's primordial religious system. It was the main way early humans first started grappling with and encoding concepts like good and evil, sacred and profane. So, words, in this view, aren't just sounds. They're sacred encodings of our encounters with reality, morality, divinity. They function as a kind of sacred architecture, helping us build our understanding of the world before formal religion even existed.
Wow, sacred architecture. That's a powerful image for language. Okay, so if words are these sacred encodings, how does the Odam Tili theory actually analyze them? How do they find this deeper meaning?
Right, well, that's where this concept called feature decomposition comes into play. It's quite a systematic methodology, actually. First, they identify these phonemic symbolic correspondences. Basically, the idea is that individual sounds or phonemes, even letters, carry consistent symbolic weight. And Kuchkarov argues these aren't just arbitrary. They're found by looking at patterns across ancient languages, seeing how sounds recur in words with similar core meanings. So, for example, G often pops up in words related to knowledge or the head. B seems linked to being, D to the body, A to origin, N to negation, things like that.
Okay, so first you identify these sound meaning links.
Exactly. Then, the second step is analyzing how these features combine within a specific word. What meaning emerges from the combination? And the third, really crucial step is comparing these findings across different languages. Does the pattern hold up? Is it universal? The goal here isn't just guesswork. It aims to provide a systematic, non-arbitrary means of interpreting polarity. It suggests there's a real structure underneath it all.
That's fascinating. A system behind the feeling of words. So let's try it out. Words are just sounds, acoustically neutral, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their polarity, good, bad, comes from what they refer to, the features of the thing described. So how does a word like bad end up negative in this system?
Okay, let's break down bad. Using this feature decomposition, B signifies being, A signifies directed toward, and D represents the body. Put them together in bad literally encodes directed toward bodily needs.
Directed toward bodily needs. Okay, why negative?
According to the theory, it's seen as negative because it encodes bodily obedience over higher knowledge. It represents a focus on, let's say, primal animalistic needs, rather than wisdom or a more complete sense of being. It's like a distraction, maybe even a step down from a higher potential or purpose.
Huh. That's quite an interpretation. Like, our language itself has this built-in ethical compass. So if bad points downwards towards the bodily, what about good? How did that get its positive charge?
Right, so good shows the opposite orientation. The G points to knowledge, or the head. The O sound often signifies gathering or collecting, and the final D represents completion or wholeness. So good translates more or less to knowledge gathered in the head, completing the body.
Knowledge completing the body.
Exactly. Its positive polarity comes from encoding completeness through wisdom. What's really interesting here, the theory argues, is that the polarity isn't inherent in the sound good or bad. It reflects this fundamental human orientation, valuing knowledge, wholeness, the epistemic as positive, versus seeing a sole focus on the bodily, the fragmented, the animalistic as negative. It shows polarity is, as the source says, culturally and semantically ascribed, not ontologically fixed. It's about human values encoded in sound.
That really underscores the potential universality. Which brings me to my next question. Is this just an English thing? Or does Odam-Tili theory suggest this kind of deep coding is, well, truly universal across different language families?
Oh, definitely. The theory argues strongly for a universal pattern, and testing that is central to the research. They provide some really compelling examples. Take Hebrew. The word tov, meaning good, seems to encode goodness as alignment with completeness. Its root also links to being fitting or pleasant. Conversely, ra, for evil, encodes ideas of fragmentation and harm, tied to concepts like breaking or shattering. See the contrast. Wholeness versus fragmentation.
Interesting. Fragmentation as evil.
Right. Or look at Sanskrit. You have sat, meaning truth, being good, versus at, non-being, false, evil. The polarity there seems to stem directly from ontology. Sat is alignment with being. Asat is its negation. It's fundamental.
Being versus non-being.
Exactly. And even in a completely different system, like Chinese characters, the character A, shan, for good, combines the symbol for sheep, yang, a symbol of purity, with the symbol for speech, aya. So good is associated with harmonious words, whereas A, for evil, combines a heart radical with a character suggesting a bad sound or jarring voice, evil linked to dissonance and corrupted intention.
Wow. Across Hebrew, Sanskrit, Chinese.
Yes, and the argument is that these parallels across such different linguistic traditions suggest polarity isn't random. It seems structurally encoded in ways consistent with Odam-Tili's claim of a universal symbolic system underlying human language.
Those examples are pretty powerful. It really makes you think about how deep these associations run. So, okay, if language is this fundamental for morality, how does the theory handle humanity's attempts to name the ultimate reality, the divine?
That's a really key application of the theory. Naming the divine is seen as a prime example of humans sacralizing language. But crucially, these names like God or Allah aren't viewed as intrinsic revelations of the divine essence itself. Instead, they're seen as human attributions of observed or inferred features of the Creator. They're a best linguistic attempts to describe the indescribable.
Human attributions. Okay, so how would God break down?
Using the Odam-Tili framework. G for knowledge, O for collected or gathered, and D for complete. So God essentially encodes the concept, the one in whom all knowledge is collected fully. It's a description of omniscience, built from these core features.
A description of omniscience. Interesting. And what about a name like Allah? It has such deep resonance.
For Allah, the analysis is fascinating too, and often aligns with traditional understandings in some ways. The A suggests origin, or on a space. The LL sound can represent balance, totality, think all, and sometimes stability, like legs standing firm. And the H sound often relates to hands, holding, or giving. So Allah could be interpreted as encoding the one upon whom all rests and in whose hands lies totality.
The one upon whom all rests.
Right. It emphasizes that these names, even the 99 names in Islam, function as attributions of features, not intrinsic designations. Language becomes the sacred tool, allowing humans to grasp and articulate aspects of the infinite. It's our lens, you could say.
It's incredible to think these huge concepts might break down to phonemic roots, which, naturally, leads to thinking about the word name itself. Does it tell us anything about its own nature through this theory?
It does, actually, and it's quite profound. Let's break down name. The N signifies negation, and M relates to owning or taking. So name literally decomposes to mean not owned.
Not owned.
Exactly. The etymology itself, according to this theory, reveals that names are fundamentally external gifts, not self-chosen possessions. Think about it. Babies are given names by others. They don't own them from the start. And in the case of the divine, humans attribute names in an attempt to describe something beyond possession. As Kuskaroff puts it, names of the Creator are linguistic gifts, not possessions of divine essence. It flips our usual idea of what a name is.
That's really thought-provoking. Our names, our identities, linguistically speaking, are gifts. So Putting this all together, what does it mean for how we understand religion itself? Sounds like this Odam-Tili theory directly challenges big thinkers like Durkheim or LEA, who often saw religion starting with rituals or myths. How does it flip that?
It flips it pretty dramatically. The central claim of Odom Tili is that language itself was the primordial religion, full stop. The argument goes. Before rituals, there had to be names for things, sacred distinctions. Before myths could be told, there had to be categories, good devil, sacred profane, established through language. And before complex theology, there was the concept of the divine word, the power of naming itself.
Language first.
Language first. And this perspective finds echoes, perhaps, in certain deep scriptural references that seem to grant language a primary sacred status. In the beginning was the word from the Gospel of John, or the Quranic concept, he says, be, and it is, the creative power of divine speech. So it makes you ask, right? What if religion isn't just shaped by language, but is actually an extension of language? It's like taking the Sapir-Whorf idea that language shapes reality and extending it right into the spiritual realm. Our theology might be, fundamentally, a linguistic construct.
Wow, okay, that's a huge idea to wrestle with. But I can hear some listeners thinking, okay, this is fascinating, but what about objections?
Yeah.
Like, how do we know these letter features aren't just, arbitrary, picked to fit? And how does this work for languages without alphabets? Or what about just basic cultural differences? Does the theory address those?
Yeah, those are absolutely fair questions, and the theory attempts to address them. On the point of arbitrariness, Odom Tili argues that decomposition isn't arbitrary. It claims it's systematic, based on cross-linguistic evidence. And its validity, they say, lies in its predictive power. Analyzing new words should consistently align with their known semantic polarity based on these features.
Okay, so it claims to be testable.
Right. As for non-alphabetic languages, the theory isn't limited to alphabets. It applies the same principles by looking at, say, symbolic radicals in Chinese characters, or semantic groups, or phonetic clusters and hieroglyphs. It looks for the meaningful components, whatever form they take. And regarding cultural relativity, while specific symbols or sounds might differ across cultures, the theory suggests the underlying principles are universal. Things like the tension between knowledge wholeness versus the bodily fragmented seems to be a deep cross-cultural human concern reflected in language structure everywhere.
So it acknowledges variation, but looks for deeper shared structures.
Exactly. And when you consider all this, the implications are pretty profound, touching on lots of fields. For moral philosophy, it suggests good and evil might be understood as encoded human orientations, how we framed our world linguistically rather than just abstract absolutes. For theology, divine names become linguistic gifts. Human attempts to grasp the infinite, not inherent labels capturing divine essence. For linguistics, word polarity isn't arbitrary convention, but emerges from these symbolic feature structures. And for semiotics, the study of signs and symbols, it positions language itself as a fundamentally sacred system. In short, language isn't just a neutral tool. It's presented as a sacred structure, maybe the very first religion through which humanity encountered the world, made sense of it, and first reached for the divine.
Okay, so we've journeyed through this Odam-Tili theory. Seeing how it proposes that the good-bad feeling of words, the act of naming, even how we conceive of God, it all might point back to language as humanity's original sacred system. It's a really powerful idea, isn't it? That religion isn't just shaped by language, maybe. In a way, it is language. Which leaves us with a final thought. What other common human experiences, things that seem mundane, might actually be echoes of this primordial sacred system encoded in the words we use every single day? Think about it. How might understanding language as humanity's first religion change the way you speak, the way you think, maybe even how you understand your own beliefs? It could definitely make you look at every single word you encounter with, well, completely new eyes.